Before we start, let me say thank you for getting us to 100 subscribers already. It's been very quick and I'm very happy. On to the video.
Androgenic alopecia, or male and female pattern baldness, are the most common types of hair loss in both men and women, both caused by dihydrotestosterone, or DHT. DHT is a hormone that comes from testosterone after it converts into DHT through the 5-AR enzyme, 5-alpha reductase. The best way to explain this would be through a comparison. Let's have this picture of me. Let's say I am testosterone. If I was to drink a cup of coffee, then it caused me to shit myself and die from embarrassment. In this scenario, the coffee would be the 5-AR enzyme. The shit left behind would be DHT. Testosterone would be gone, lost to the conversion. There are 3 types of the 5-AR enzyme. Specifically, type 2 is responsible for producing DHT in the scalp and the prostate. DHT in the prostate causes it to enlarge and swell, leading to blockage of urine from the bladder, urinary tract infections, even erectile issues and kidney problems. This is called benign prostatic hypertrophy, or BPH. The reason I bring this up, even though it may sound irrelevant, is that BPH, while it mainly only affects older men, is still a very common condition. So those of you afraid of finasteride, just know that many of you will be taking it anyway in some point in your life. And I think it would be sad if you did that, only after going bald. DHT on the scalp will cause it to gradually shorten the anagen growth phase of your hair cycle. This leads to smaller hairs that fall out quicker, and this will gradually progress until eventually there's no more hair growth in that affected area. After that point, the only solution is usually a hair transplant. Finasteride, of course, works by blocking the type 2 5-AR enzyme. This will prevent your testosterone from converting into DHT in the scalp and prostate, therefore protecting your hair, protecting your prostate, and preserving your testosterone. But how well does finasteride actually work? There are many different opinions on this, the most popular being that, yeah, it works, but it only slows down the progression of hair loss. I believe this idea comes from the FDA study showing that finasteride's results in terms of regrowth will peak after 1 or 2 years, and after that, there is only a very slow decline afterwards, implying that the hair loss has found its way back, only much slower than it would have been. Now, what's important to mention is that even though there was a decline after a few years, the patient still had more hair than they did at baseline level, which is when they first started taking finasteride. So if we're to go off this one study by itself, it would emphasize the importance of starting early. Think about it. If you start finasteride and you've barely lost any hair, and you're just using it for maintenance because you know it's somewhere in your family genes, at least in the end of the 5-year mark, you'd be at a very good point in your hair loss because in the end of the 5 years, you have more hair than when you started. You already had very good head of hair. But I don't think you need to worry about the effects diminishing over time, because there are much more studies out there of high quality showing that the effects actually persist and in many cases even continue to get better year by year. This first one is a Korean study of 126 men. They all had androgenic alopecia, and they were all taking finasteride 1 mg daily. In the end of the 5-year mark, 85% of them saw improvements in their regrowth. Now, this is very impressive, and if we're going to look at these specific balding regions, 61% of patients saw an improvement in the frontal area, 89% of them saw improvements on the crown, and 44% saw improvements on the hairline. Now, this shows that there are some regions that are more stubborn than others, but that to me only further shows the importance of starting early. It's much easier to maintain the hair you still have. rather than trying to regain the hairs that you've lost. This next study was done in Japan, consisting of 801 men using finasteride for 5 years. All of these men had androgenic alopecia, and in the end of the 5-year mark, 99% of them had improvements, while 100% saw no further hair loss. Now, I'm not using this to say that finasteride will work on absolutely everybody, but I think this study just goes to show how the odds are very much in your favor that the effects will persist with you long term, especially considering that this study had a much higher sample size than the previous we spoke about. But we don't just want to hold on to our hair for 5 years. We want our hair forever. We don't want to slow it down. After all, hair becomes more attractive on you the older you get because it becomes more rare. So, how about 10 years? Well, we have another study here done in Japan, consisting of 523 men. They all had androgenic alopecia, and once again were all using finasteride daily. In the end of the 10-year period, 91.5% of them saw improvements in their hair growth, while 99.1% saw no further hair loss. So these once again are very impressive numbers, and this paper also included pictures that we can look at, and I'll show you those as well. Another thing to note from this study is that it showed something very important regarding starting early. It showed that finasteride has a better response to those who take it when their hair loss is less advanced. So if you're a Norwood 1, maybe a Norwood 2, and you're taking finasteride to hold on to what you still have before things get bad, you're likely going to see even better regrowth than if you were to start taking it after reaching Norwood 5 or 6, where at most you would only be maintaining the lack of hair that you already have, and maybe at worst case scenario, just slowing down any further progression. So once again, starting early is key. But either way, these are very impressive results, the pictures are looking very impressive, and overall, assuming you're starting as soon as possible, it looks as though finasteride will take good care of you in the long term. But there's a common point of contention against these studies. Notice how all of them consisted of East Asian patients. Well, this is a group of people who have a lower rates of having androgenic alopecia. This is used to assume that perhaps because of this, the few that do have it would maybe have it less aggressively, therefore a better response to using these treatments. However, there's really not enough data to confirm this, and the reason why I'm not convinced is because this next study I'm going to show you shows very similar results. It's another 10-year study, and these men were not East Asian, at least not exclusively. And in this study, 86% of the men saw no further hair loss after using finasteride 1 mg daily, once again for 10 years. This study also included pictures for comparison. I'm going to show you those now, and once again the results are very impressive. And as you can clearly see, these men are white men. So, in conclusion, finasteride will take good care of you if you start soon as possible, and you won't need to worry about the effects diminishing over time.